This is Coder Radio, episode 19 for October 15th, 2012. You're listening to Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Good morning, propaganda minister.
Good morning, sir, and actually good afternoon to you. How are you doing today? Are you a little under the weather?
A little under the weather, but
you sound like a little under the weather.
It's all right. I took some Ricola, as they say on the TV.
Yeah.
And a bit of Dayquil, so I should be able to make it.
Okay, good. Well, what are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about process.
Ooh, are we going to get like our PMO hats on?
A little bit, and here's why. I've been getting tons of emails with questions that basically boil down to, I need process.
Help me get my work done kind of stuff.
Right, so this is kind of like when we got all the people don't know how to use source control emails. We talked about it. I figured let's just do a show, talk about it. That way we can reference it back instead of always having to answer those questions.
Yeah, okay, I'm good. You know what? This might be something I can even apply to my own work. So,
sure.
All right, I'm down.
I mean, it's going to be very, very opinion heavy because there's really, everybody's got their own process, but.
And yeah, well, and you know what? If people, maybe we'll just say this on the onset. If we say something that maybe makes somebody's brain hurt, or if they know of a different process or a way to get it done, let us know. Email us coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. So before we get to all that, though, should we start with the feedback?
Sure. So MacArthur wrote in a novel, which is good. I loved it. It was actually a very good read.
Okay, good.
Basically, a lot of it was about high-level languages, JavaScript, and a few other things. But there was one line that I kind of wanted to quote because I thought it was really profound. Anyway, I do agree with you that it's not perfect, but no language will stop people from writing bad code. Oh. Nothing ever will.
Amen to that.
Fair enough. And this is in response, of course, to my the JavaScript problem article and last episode.
Right.
So that's fair enough. And just to kind of, I got a lot of your emails about the JavaScript stuff, and a lot of your tweets, and a lot of your Google Plus. What do they call it on Google Plus? Are they mentions?
Pluses? No.
Pluses? All right. Whatever. I got them. So high level, about half of you think JavaScript is awful. The other half of you think the people just, that have problems are the problem. Whatever. I mean, we're not going to settle it. Let's just let it stand where it stands. One I will answer particularly is Matt, who writes in wanting to know why. So he thinks that I think all students who were taught Java can't learn JavaScript because of prototypical inheritance. It's not exactly what I said. I think anybody can learn anything. My issue is that there's a lot of people who learn one language. I picked on Java because that's what colleges teach, but we can pick on any other language, C#, whatever. And they don't want to learn anything new, and they just apply what they know from that language to everything else. So to answer your question, no, I don't think you should have any problem learning JavaScript as long as you treat it as a separate language and don't try to apply Java principles onto it. He also asked about using Code Academy to learn JavaScript. Go for it. I mean, any learning tool is better than none. So.
Okay.
This next one, Stephen writes in, and we should put this in the show notes.
Okay.
To share a number of tools for robotics development.
Oh. What do we got?
He said something about sky.net.
Sky.net. I'll take a look.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It seems awfully familiar.
That's Skynet. Oh, I see. I was like, oh, is this a new site? Oh, well, let's see. Let me hear. Install this agent on my computer. Oh, it seems to be spreading to my smartphone. And why is it downloading something to my car? Is that a gun?
Yeah, so this is, I know there's a lot of movement in the space. Microsoft has something, and there's like 8,000 open source projects.
Yeah.
And this is in response, I think, to the person who wrote in about Raspberry Pi. And I'm just moving through the feedback pretty quickly.
Yeah, we're moving quick this week.
Because we have a timetable today.
Yeah, we have a timetable.
So,
let's see if this show can stick to a timetable. I doubt it. I think it works better when we just go as long as we want. But this week we have to constrain ourselves.
We have to. So Rutger, whose name I probably just butchered, and I do apologize, is a question about managing SQL databases in Git.
In Git, okay.
So the answer is you don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never heard of this.
That's not what you should be doing.
Well, I mean,
you're doing it wrong.
I don't know though. I mean, I've heard of a lot of different interesting uses of Git. Like I just heard about a guy who's working on a distribution who manages all its Linux updates through Git.
But you never commit things that are produced by the application, right?
Right.
Now, a tactic I learned a long, long time ago, this is back like when I was in shorts, was never commit a database or else. Rather, commit differential scripts. Right?
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
So that way, everybody's got their own local database, and they can run the script to get into the same state as you.
Right, exactly.
The issue is that Git will, in some cases, mangle your database, and the merge conflicts for your co-developers is going to be rough. Like it's something source control is not designed for. Right? You're not supposed to commit your database. I mean, now Chris brings up a thing on how to back up your database in Git.
Well, I think I like the idea of you export out the database and you save off the dumps and the scripts, and that's how you do it.
That's one way to do it, but you never actually commit the .db or .c file.
See, in this guy, in his blog post, he's using MySQL dump to write it out to a file, and then he's committing the file.
And that's something I've done, is you write out the dump. In fact, that's something I think I have. I think that's what my scripts actually do.
Yeah.
The good thing about scripts is once you write them,
you never think of them again.
Kind of forgot what they do. But anyway, so let's say you're doing a .NET application. Don't commit like the Northwind database file unless you want to cry. So I hope that answers your question, and I hope you didn't actually commit the whole database. All right, so Chris, why don't you read this one?
All right, which line are we on? After the Git? Yeah, okay. So Wouter writes in, bemoaning Google Play's insistence on credit cards rather than PayPal. Oh, I see. You just want me to beat on Google. And wonders how that might affect app sales. Question to you, sir. Do you think requiring people to have a credit card is going to limit the amount of people that would purchase your app?
I haven't thought of this. So my understanding is the only reason Google Play doesn't have PayPal is because they have their own alternative called Google Checkout or Google Wallet now.
Right, but until just very recently, and maybe Wouter might be still, maybe it's not available in his country too, is until recently the only way to provide payment was to have a credit card attached. So like they didn't have like you can get iTunes gift cards. Right, and you can charge up the account and stuff like that. So
he says in his country they do not have gift cards.
So they can't do that. See, now they've just the Play gift cards. What they announced them at I/O like a few months back in the beginning of summer. To me it does seem like it would hinder sales because I know people who get them for Christmas who get gift cards and then that's their app budget. That's how Angela's parents do it for their iPads. Is the family all buys them iTunes gift cards, and then they just spend that for the rest of the year.
Sure. I mean, I think it's, answer to his question, it's very obvious how it's going to affect sales, right? It's negative. The less people who can practically purchase a product, that's X fewer people to purchase the product.
I think Google's Play. So Google Play is based on the back-end payment system is based on Google Wallet, and that is just beginning to roll out with Google. I mean, they are going to make. I think this will be one of the biggest pushes Google makes in the next 2 years is Google Wallet. So I don't think that's going to be a big issue for the Play Store for very much longer.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about Google. I don't know anything about Google's internal strategy in terms of Google Wallet to really.
Well, it's the cornerstone of a pay with your Android phone systems. So if
but my understanding, it's rolled out here and in Canada, and nowhere else.
Well,
and I think that seems to be the problem.
Yeah.
So jumping back to Rutger's question really quick, Yeah, a good rule of thumb that someone put in the chat: if it's in your /bin directory in your project, don't commit it, because that means it was generated by your source code. So if you want the quick and dirty answer, that would be the way. All right, shall we move on to Colin?
Sure.
So Colin sends me a letter as with an attachment of a Haskell program.
Yes.
So luckily, I still have the Haskell toolset on this machine. I was able to compile it in minutes rather than an hour. So basically, it's a little cool cipher. I compiled it and it decrypted a message. Basically, all it is he was telling me the number of projects that use Haskell. And what I found really interesting is that Haskell is the 18th most popular language on GitHub.
Oh.
I did not know that, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Huh.
All right, let's do the hoopla.
All right, what is the dev hoopla this week?
So I read an article this week that I found a bit disturbing, entitled "How TaxCloud Stole My Code and What I'm Doing About It."
Wow.
Now, this Drew Templemeyer is a developer. He seems to be a Ruby developer, and I don't know him personally. I've never heard of him since this week. Basically, he was using a service called TaxCloud. He needed a gem for some additional functionality. He wrote a gem, sent it to them, saying, "Here, I wrote this. What do you think? Can you maybe get me?" I guess he wanted some kind of recognition from them. I'm sure to help his portfolio or whatever. So he didn't really get a response. TaxCloud then released their own gem. He looked at the code. It was more or less identical to his. And that's the TLDR version of this.
Yeah.
And he shows screenshots in Sublime Text of the code side by side.
Comparing it, you can kind of see it. It pretty much, yeah.
It pretty much is identical.
There's some formatting differences. In fact, worse formatting, but...
Yeah, so you could tell they have, different indentation settings and different font, not fonts, I'm sorry, different, just a different style guide internally.
Yeah.
So that's not good. Rule of thumb here, if someone ever offers you code and they don't explicitly write a license on it, means it's proprietary, even if they show you the source. So any argument that he didn't say there was a license doesn't matter. So this is bad, right? This is this is the worst case scenario here. So I hope he does does okay. I mean, certainly I'm sure if I were working for TaxCloud, I'd be very embarrassed about this. Just, this is the kind of thing that you got to keep your eye out for.
Yeah. Unfortunately, people try to take advantage of you and things like that. And you got to wonder, what kind of recourse can he take? And will he? And I guess I should...
I mean, well, he could sue for...
He could, but let's talk reality here. Would you? Would it be worth your time?
No, I would probably do what he's doing. He's blasting them online, right?
And
he's...
probably leave it at that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, he's done some damage. He ended up at the top of Hacker News for a while.
Yeah, in fact, that's pretty good recognition right there.
So if they have a PR department, I'm surprised they're not all over this. But it's one of those things... It's just, it's something to watch out for.
Yeah.
So the other news this week, or the other biggest story, was still the continuation of the TypeScript war.
TypeScript war!
The article I wrote that got Reddited still has, it's over 70 comments now of two guys yelling at each other still. Same two dudes. Also, MSDN posted another video with the creator of TypeScript and some other Microsoft people, and there have been countless blog posts and articles written about TypeScript.
Yeah.
Don't feel like going into it today, but it's the same arguments over and over again.
You haven't been swayed. You don't see any difference. You think you feel like you covered it all.
I don't feel. Yeah, I don't feel like any. I've read everything I've seen. They haven't really changed my position on TypeScript in that I don't think it goes far enough.
Oh, okay.
So remember, I think JavaScript needs to be replaced, not. We don't want to jump back into this because this is another 2 hours of debate. But just adding optional static typing doesn't really do the job. And optional classes doesn't really do the job.
Yeah.
But if you really want to learn more about it, check it out. There are some good arguments being made on both sides. I still feel like the JavaScript all the way pure people, a lot of them are still coming off as a touch defensive.
Well, that's understandable, I think.
I mean, a lot of it seems to really boil down to, well, if there's more developers, I can't charge, X dollars an hour.
Huh.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that still. And
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I have to say that did happen in the Objective-C community when Arc came out too.
Yeah.
But I can tell you from the way it played out there, it's not going to hurt you. So.
Can I tell you about something I like?
Sure.
All right, well, I want to tell you about two things I like, actually. First of all, Mr. Dominic, I want to tell you about something you probably never heard of before. It's called Code Journal. And this is an application that I've recently found. And I think for somebody like yourself who uses Git, you might find this very valuable. It's going to save you a ton of time. It's going to keep you up to date on what's going on with like the different projects that you follow. And if you are a Mountain Lion user, it's going to integrate in with the notification center. And let's be honest, not enough programs do that yet. So it's nice to have a program that does it. It's codejournalapp.com. And of course, I don't know. Have you heard of this? What do you think, Michael? Anything else worth mentioning?
I think this is the best app on the App Store right now.
Probably. I would agree.
I think in the next 2 weeks. Well, actually, I just released an update on Sunday.
Oh, really?
Another update to the direct sales customers.
Which you can get at codejournalapp.com.
And I definitely recommend getting it there, only because now, so this last update was actually additional features and some UX tweaks. So now, let's see, the App Store is 3 versions behind.
Well, you know what it is they pulled the reviewers off of the Mac App Store to focus for the iPhone 5 and iOS 6 stuff.
So, and it's been waiting for review for over 25 days now.
Oh my God.
And that's one version. So
that's unacceptable.
Yeah, it's a problem. But I would, if you prefer the App Store, certainly buy it there. If you get it there, 5-star. I know there's a few, if your friend has it direct, he's going to have a few more features and a few performance changes, but those are coming for the App Store customers. It's just, it's really out of my control.
And if you are not a Mac user, but you know someone who loves a great app and is a fan of GitHub, send them this link, codejournalapp.com, or if they have like an internal enterprise Git server, just recently.
Yes. Just recently supports enterprise.
So go check that out, and you support Mr. Dominic directly, who is just out there trying to put food on the table. And while you're trying to help others put food on the table, I want to remind everybody about our affiliates. We have over at JupiterBroadcasting.com. I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but we just added eBay. So we have eBay US. So if anybody buys their things off of eBay or something like that, we have that now. And just a quick reminder, we also have the extensions, which you might want to load, so that way you don't have to think about it. And we're always adding stuff to those extensions. Like we'll be adding not just eBay US to the extension, but eBay for everyone around the world will go into that. Whereas right now, the link on our front page is only for the US. So that's it's a pretty nice extension that Rikai is working on, which is also posted up on GitHub that people can check out. So thanks to everybody who supports Mr. Dominic and supports Jupiter Broadcasting by taking advantage of our affiliate system or contributing directly over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate.
Can I tease something?
Yeah, man, totally.
So folks with iDevices that do equal phones.
That's okay.
Might want to
parse that.
Might want to pay attention the next week or two.
Really? You got something to share? You will?
Cupertino willing.
Cupertino willing. You may have something to share, huh? That's all you can say. That's all you can say. All right. Well.
Yeah, that's all I can say. The world is a rough place, and I seem to have to wait a month for everything.
Yeah, well, they're too busy putting the magazine out, so.
Yeah, that's a good app. I mean, do we want to talk about that in the hoopla?
Sure.
So, Marco Arment, the lord of iOS developers everywhere.
Sir Marco.
I say that sarcastically.
Sir Marco the Great.
Sir Marco the persnickety at times. Released an app called The Magazine.
Author of Instapaper, and he also coded a lot of the original Tumblr.com.
Yeah, he's actually a very good developer. I just like to harass him. I'm not going to go into great detail because I know it's probably not of interest to most of the audience. But what is important about this is that he is making money successfully on paid content without selling users' data on a mobile device. That's huge, right? So all this crying about, oh, we need to collect data, we need this, we can't make money. How many magazine publications are... Chris, what was that 2 weeks ago, that blue frog that leaked everybody's data?
Yeah, right. They released the UUIDs.
Exactly,
Right?
and they were a system used mostly by publication companies who claim that they can't make enough selling the content, so they have to get your data.
Crap.
The magazine is doing incredibly well according to the App Store rankings, and his coy hinting. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's what you want. You
that is
want
good.
more, even if you don't like the things he talks about, even if you don't like iOS. You want more paid applications that don't violate your privacy to be successful and to be able to support the developer.
And that are clean and that are text based and not like it's not one of these image like PDF downloads where it's a 300 megabyte issue. It's like it's text, it's vectors, he must use like part of the Instapaper cleaning engine to just kind of do a very clean display of it.
Yeah, he wrote a blog post about it. He's using a lot of it's actually very interesting what he does with HTML and CSS to do this. The app is native, but there's a portion that parses.
And it's
very interesting.
Other than the biggest part is the payment infrastructure, because there's nothing about it that makes it iOS specific, like in terms of like you couldn't do it on another platform. It would just take a lot of work, and you would have to have a payment infrastructure.
He's apparently gotten a lot of emails about that, and he did address it. He has a bias.
Yeah, but he said that about Instapaper for years, and now Instapaper's out.
Yeah, boatload of money on Android with Instapaper.
Yeah, so and if the Kindle Fire sells well, and if the the Nexus tablets continue to sell well, which I'm sure they will, and Google's supposedly going to announce another one in December, I think he will.
Well, maybe. So some of the issue is that there's a little bit of fragmentation on the in-app purchasing and the subscription stuff on Android.
Yeah.
So if he goes first of all, he doesn't write Android, so he'd have to contract out. So I don't know because he's only asking for $1.99 a month or something. So I don't know if the numbers don't stack up. But yeah,
you'll see. It'll be interesting to watch and see if he keeps at it.
I mean, the point is, this is something, whether it's Marco Arment who does it, or Pop in the chat room, I just randomly picked you, or perhaps Slips or Brian 2040. I'm just reading names out now. This is the kind of business model that's healthy. You're charging for something instead of taking people's data. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I agree.
Last thing I wanted to mention is Bitbucket.org had an overhaul. They're a competitor to GitHub. A lot of people keep messaging me, Chris, that GitHub's too pricey. And I have to agree.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of projects, it gets expensive.
Okay.
Just check out Bitbucket.org. This new overhaul is really good.
Yeah, it looks really nice. And you've actually off air, I don't know if you've mentioned on air, but off air you've mentioned you're a fan of Bitbucket to me.
I've been using it for several years, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Bitbucket.org, GitHub. Off the top of your head, what would you say is like besides its price, the nicest advantage over GitHub?
It can use Mercurial in addition to Git.
So that's very nice for those of you who prefer.
Yep. Oh, and it ties into the entire Jira toolchain and the Atlassian toolchain. So if that's something you use, because it's an Atlassian product, but it's free, and you can have as many private repos as you need. That's also good.
Yeah.
All right. So, Chris, we know you're a PM.
Absolutely. Of myself.
So we've been getting a lot of emails, and I'm sure you've seen them as well, about that basically boil down to, I need process, I can't manage this. So first off, I want to get right off the bat, what do I mean by process? I'm not talking Agile, Scrum here. I'm talking at a much, let's say, higher level. So a lot of people think of process, they think of Intel, right? They think of AT&T, they think of big organizations with guys with white dress shirts, black ties, and TPS reports. Really, that's not all it's about. I'll give you an example. Usually on most projects, I'm the only developer, and I found that by implementing a form of internal development process and external process, I'm able to get things done more efficiently and with less friction.
Sure.
For instance, effective time management, right?
Yeah.
Remember the Pomodoro technique we kept talking about?
Oh, yeah.
That's one form.
Yeah.
Additionally, if you're a consultant, and I'm sure, Chris, this is something you have, whether you're a coder or a sysadmin, it's sometimes hard to actually get your coding done when people are calling and emailing you all day.
Oh, gosh. So hard.
Yeah. So one trick I found is to actually keep office hours. Right. So
I like this. I'm liking this.
I take calls between 7 and 4, and beyond that, I'm reluctant to take a call.
That's a pretty big window.
I keep long office hours. Yeah.
It's harder for me to. For me, working into the evenings now is getting harder with kids and shows. But
yeah. So the thing is, I try and work most of the day. What I also do is during a POMO, I usually won't answer the call. I'll call it back on the POMO's break.
That's interesting. So you're kind of using the break. See, I really do need to try this technique because now here's my problem though. This is great when you are sitting at home and you're in your own workspace and you have control over your environment. My issue is I'm often at a client space and all of a sudden I'm expected to play by their rules, whatever their office culture is, and how every office and every workplace seems to treat interruption differently. Some have no regard for it and don't even realize there is such a thing as attention and distraction. And
right.
Then that's the place I'm at now, right? There's probably half a dozen dogs that run around the place. There's shouting across the building. There's paging constantly.
Did you say dogs?
Yeah. Not like quiet ones either. Like little barky, running all over the place, playing constantly dogs, getting into stuff nonstop, potting on the floor.
Like my dogs, like beagles and wow.
Okay. Yeah, smaller than beagles, more like fluffier things that are about the size of cats, but they're dogs. And it's fine. I like the little dogs. They're nice little dogs. And I like the place. I like the people there. They're all very, very nice people. One of the nicest offices I've ever worked in terms of people. But very distracting, right? Extremely hard to. And when I'm working on stuff that's advanced, it's like, gosh, what can I do in those situations? I think, you're kind of stuck.
So I think I have a different take on it, but also I think this is where the difference between being a sysadmin and a developer is going to really show the gap. First of all, I resist going on site wherever possible. Just secondly, I consider a day on site as a shot coding day. Because usually when someone asks me if I can really, can you make it up to New York? I get there, let's say I get there at 8 a.m. I'm in meetings until I get on the train for New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
My day, one client, I just finally asked him, I said, how about this? Since you're going to book me for meetings with everybody, why don't you just let me stay in the same conference room and have everybody report to me at the right time? Because it was getting crazy. They had a big office. I was running from floor to floor. I said, it's just have them all come to me. That's fine. Because it can get you in process-driven organizations like that. I mean, you have to talk to the marketing people, right? They want to see new screenshots. Legal wants to make sure you're not doing anything bad. Back-end guys, you have to talk to them.
Oh, yeah.
Designers want at least 4 hours of your time.
I hope. I mean, you want them to, because you want it to look good.
The PM is having a panic attack, and you need to, rock him and cuddle him and tell him it's okay.
And the CEO wants to know why it's not done yet.
Oh, and if it's a startup, the CEO wants to know why the PM isn't managing it and starts talking to you, and it gets uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
So ultimately, and then of course there's you find out, and this happened to me more than once, that someone's been assigned to work reporting to you for a month or so, and you find out they haven't done anything because they figure since you're not on site, they'll get away with it, and then you end up dressing someone down who is someone else's employee.
Oh,
that's always fun.
Yeah,
and I've done that. I hate to say it, but once. Not. I mean, as the person yelling.
Good for you doing the dressing. You did the dressing down. You dressed them. Good. I mean, that's a hard thing as a contractor to get to be in a place to do, because a lot of times it's an intimidating situation.
So it's not that hard for me, because you have to remember I'm usually only called by these type of organizations when something has gone really bad.
Okay.
So I go in there. I hate to say it, but I kind of have a license to kill. Like,
you're a ninja.
Not a ninja. I'm just like, usually it's the director or the CEO, never the PM calling.
Yeah,
really bad.
That's nice.
And they're just like, I don't care what you do, just do it.
A lot of times I get brought in at behest of somebody above the IT person, but I'm actually brought in by the IT person. So it's really uncomfortable to dress them down, because they're technically, and they can go to the boss and we gotta let this one go.
Well, and I hate to say it, but that has happened once. The situation where it happened was there was a very new developer, he had, he'd learned Java in school, didn't really learn Objective-C, and his Objective-C was full of memory leaks, and that's why they had all these problems. And when I asked him to do something, he thought he could get away with just not doing it effectively. So, I was not happy, and I told him that was a problem. And then, of course, his boss's boss came to me, well, why isn't this done? You said it was, you're supposed to be good, that kind of thing. And I said, well, this is why, I delegated it and it didn't get done. And unfortunately, that kid did lose his job, which is not the intended outcome, right? So listen to our younger listeners. Even if if you're told to report to a contractor for a month or something, you have to follow the contractor's directives as though he were your boss. Because I'm sure, as the more senior developers will tell you, if your job is like, let's say you're, I don't know, JavaScript developer, and they bring in a few contractors for JavaScript, you need to be a little worried. Like, it may not be true, but sometimes management does think, well, how come our people couldn't get it done?
Yeah.
So, and being combative and being derelict is, derelict in your duty to do whatever you were told to do is unwise. It's just not, because, once there's a problem, your boss, or even your boss's boss, your word is not going to go against this outsider who they see as, magical and can fix their problem.
No, you usually have a little political capital for a while as that outsider, so...
Oh, especially in this case, I did fix their problem, so... and I felt bad, and he was a good developer. He just really felt that he could get away with it. And he wasn't managed because they figured I would, and he just didn't do it. And the problem is, I'm not one to really, I don't log into the source control system every day and check if people have pushed. And maybe I should, but... I kind of hate when people do that. Well, you only pushed 6 times today.
So when you start working with people like this, do you kind of try to encourage them to adopt your processes, or
no? See, I don't attempt to change. So in the cases where someone assigns something to me, I don't attempt to change their process. I say I tell them, we have this long list of things we have to get done. I said, because usually the person's somewhat junior. I say, of these things, how many of them have you done before, and would you feel comfortable doing again, given this timetable? And then I say, okay, get it done. I don't even have them adopt my branching or source control model. I adhere to whatever their internal process is.
Yeah, okay, that's what I do too. Yeah.
So the only, it's usually not an issue. It's only an issue. And in fairness, this kid was just out of college. He was very, very green, and they didn't. I know the PM there. He's a very nice guy, and they don't have a strong... I think he might be the first person they let go, to be honest. Like, they don't have a strong negative review culture. If that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a shame. I just hope it's a service to some of our... Because we get a lot of email from college kids getting their first job. Even if the person's not... what was really interesting, and I don't know if this happens to you, Chris, on my contract, sometimes they give me a title in their organization.
Whoa.
I don't know.
Yes, actually, on one client I did. I was the interim IT director. Right,
and I'm like interim mobile director. So, or interim lead project manager, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to just honestly do what you're told. Like, don't play Angry Birds for a month.
Even if it just came out and it's really
now, having
awesome.
said that, after that experience, I have become a little more pro monitoring. So I now do scrums if someone has to report to me. Like, I do, okay, a minute or less, tell me what you did.
Yeah, I have to say, I worked, so I have had these series of clients that have been burst clients, and then I have a series of clients that have just turned into, year-long contracts. And the one where I was interim IT director, the guy that I stepped in, who he had somebody working below him, and that guy, when I walked in there, I was told that guy working below him was unreliable. He couldn't get anything done. All this stuff. And after working with the guy, he was one of the best self-starting. Like, this guy, he would keep a task. He had all these tasks. He would check them off. He was really, really good. And that was one of the rarest opportunities I've had where I've worked with somebody else that they've been sort of a subordinate that have been that good at really following through on everything. I've really found that what I generally have to do is set up some sort of shared system with them where we can kind of keep in sync on tasks, because if you don't follow it, they kind of drift off.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you bring up a good side point. Sometimes organizations get a little cliquey.
Mm-hmm.
Especially at least in the startup world. If a group of friends started a business and now they brought on this new developer, you can kind of tell going in that new developer is kind of an outsider, and he's very likely to get scapegoated.
Yeah, that's exactly what had happened. Yeah, it was a company that started by 3 founders and then kind of grew.
Yeah, and that's a shame, but that's a total. I mean, we're off the base here.
Yeah.
But anyway, so process. All right, back to the point. So I think a lot of our listeners might ask why they need to worry about this at all. And it's really pretty simple, right? It's about, for the internal side, it's about managing stress and managing some sort of sane balance between work and everything else. Right,
which if you don't do, you eventually pay for.
So additionally, if you're a consultant, you can get into a trap of working unpaid overtime.
Mm.
And I linked a great article in here, Why I Don't Work Unpaid Overtime. One of the great points the author of this article makes is that, some of the biggest breakthroughs in technology were done on a 40-hour week. Right? AT&T, Bell Labs, Unix. So there's no need to bleed the candle at both ends. And the reason you would need to worry about this is because, efficiency matters. I mean, taking home something and working over the entire weekend and killing yourself just to get something done for Monday morning is not great. That means there's something wrong with either your employer's process or your own process.
This is one of those things, Michael, that you are talking and it is going into people's ears and they think they're listening to you. And they think they're nodding along, yeah, and it is not registering with anybody, and it pisses me off. It's something in the American culture where we are proud to overwork. Like, I notice when I sit down around the family table, people brag about how much overtime they're working and how many hours they work. It's like this mantle of look what I can do, and it's not that. It is a sign of inefficiency. It's a sign that you don't have a workflow and a process, and you're not managing your time. And it's actually, in my opinion, it's an alarm bell in a lot of cases.
Right, or even, let's play devil's advocate. Let's just say the expectations were set unrealistically. That means it's a sign of, that your organization may be set up differently, but your software architect, your tech director, project manager, whoever does the actual estimations, doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
If you find yourself working every night and every weekend.
Well, now, let's be clear. You and I do tend to work most nights and weekends.
So it's also different if you own the company.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
So if you're working, and this is something that I see happen a lot in startup culture, the founders that are working all night, so is the employee making less than market on some vague promise of equity. And they talk about passion. It's great. Your business, you can be passionate. It's not wise if you're just, a salaried employee to be sitting there working more than 40 hours a week. Because think about it. When you negotiate a salary, you're implicitly negotiating, in most cases, a 40-hour work week at 5 days a week for X dollars an hour.
Yeah.
So you're negotiating against an hourly rate. If your 40-hour week turns into a 60-hour week, you're now making significantly less than what you say you're making.
See, so what Infinite Chaos is talking about, now, of course, every situation is different, right? I mean, if you're firefighters putting out a forest fire, this obviously does not apply to you. But in what situation? So he says here in the chat room, I have worked 119 hours in one 7-day period because of an incredibly grueling workload. Okay, and he goes on to say that I had 4 people working under me who did 60 hours in that week. Now, I'm not saying that's his fault, but that's probably whatever company he was working for is fault. That's ridiculous. Unless he's, like I said, unless he's putting out fires. And
unless there's a really good reason, like, listen, EC2 goes down, that stuff happens.
And I've worked years and years and years of 60-hour work weeks, and I put in way, way more than 60 hours of work in a week. I work every hour that I'm awake. I do not ever have downtime. That's how much I work. But you know what? It's like I allocate some of that time to different things, and there's ways of managing that so that it doesn't kill me. There's a process to it, really.
Yeah. it's it, really it's just a fundamental. It's very strange, right? Because everybody goes into an interview and they want to negotiate the best salary for themselves, but then they break their own interests by working overtime on salary. It's and Strengths is putting in the chat. It's usually a symptom of understaffing. That's often the case. Sometimes it's I'm seeing, especially in the startup world, there's this weird image of the hero hacker who doesn't sleep and doesn't have a family and works 15 hours a day so his boss can IPO or get bought out by Google
and lives off Mountain Dew and Cheetos.
And I've done that. I tell you something, they will lay you off or fire you the instant you stop wanting to do that.
Yep. God, yes. Thank you. I've worked for companies that lay off that guy. That I've been there when we've had that guy, and then we use him up, and then we let him go, and it drives me nuts.
And what is going to happen is it's going to breed resentment, and it's just not fun. It's not a good place to be.
Infinite Chaos follows up in the chat room. He says, it's also a problem of meeting expectations and not being able to set other people's expectations, and I think that's incredibly right.
So that's actually going to come to our next bullet point here, managing your external process, which can be, if you're a consultant, anything from billing, which I recommend you just automate with something like Harvest or FreshBooks, but also communications. So I like to keep in constant communication with the client and let them know of even the smallest issues. The reason for that is A, if you're billing by the hour, you don't want sticker shock. But also B, deadlines often have to be slipped. And you don't want to
surprise them.
Yeah, you really don't want to surprise anyone.
That's for sure. Yeah, keep communication going. I send daily notes.
Yeah, there's some great tools you can use for this. I like Basecamp. It's a little pricey, but I've tried pretty much every tool on the block, and Basecamp seems to be the only one that really. The other thing is a lot of people already know how to use Basecamp, so yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's much easier to get people to use something that if they've heard of it before.
Yeah. Another thing is there's a lot of hubla around continuous deployment. Interesting concept. I've done it. It's okay. It's just it's just another way to keep the feedback loop going, right? So constantly be deploying your changes to the website if you're doing a website or a backend. Again, anything. You never want to get into a Friday end of the week call where your customer, your boss, your client, whatever, is shocked by what you're telling them.
Yeah, we had one of those recently with one of the people I was working with, and they, they are very invested in the situation, and they react very strongly.
Because a lot of them will say, "Well, it's Friday. You knew about this on Monday. How come I didn't hear about it?" And that is your fault.
It's also how you end up working through the weekend.
Yeah,
you end up getting a situation where you feel like you have to offer it in order just to kind of give umbrage. Yeah.
Umbrage, anything where you can, and I do think you should automate a lot of this stuff if you can.
Yeah.
Like Basecamp, I hate, that is our tool of the week, but it can integrate with a number of source control services to actually send your push notes to the client so they can, or at least push them.
Oh.
Yeah. So that way they get, you push once a day, maybe commit locally, push once a day, they get a daily report of kind of where you're going.
Oh, snaps McGee. That's interesting. I wonder if I could use this in terms of committing server config files, and then they would essentially get a report of the config files that I
possibly
modified.
I mean, they have, so their plans are a little pricey, but if you click at the bottom, they have a quote budget plan for like $15, which is a little more reasonable. And it scales based on how many projects you have.
What if they do affiliates? This isn't like a good deal. I should look into these guys.
Yeah. I mean, again, anything where you can automate. Another thing I recently started automating is my invoicing.
So does this Basecamp at all have any connectivity with your invoicing? Because I know you're using Harvest,
it does.
Right?
Yeah, I'm using Harvest. There's a Harvest plugin.
Oh, so how does that work?
Well, I don't use it to its full extent, but I track time in Harvest, and it goes against Basecamp tasks or to-dos.
Oh, so Harvest also can communicate back with Basecamp. They
can communicate with each other. Another thing, mentioning Harvest, I automate my invoicing and my reminders. So, sometimes it's a little uncomfortable to write a, hey, the invoice is late letter. So Harvest just generates one for you if it hasn't been paid.
This is what I'm going to contact to see if they want to sponsor the show, because I think this is a great thing for both people like you and I, and there's probably some out in our audience who, if you ever just need to bill some people, and does it so it bills them with I gotta look into this because this is nice. I like the idea that it ties in with the project management.
It also ties in if you can do a PayPal invoice where it's literally a PayPal page where they can just sign in and pay you directly.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's very good. I like it a lot. This is just one of those things about if you manage your external client facing or process, you're going to save a lot of time.
I use I'm not like particularly married to them, but I use FreshBooks.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
And FreshBooks was a sponsor a while back. They don't sponsor anymore. And the only thing about FreshBooks is they're kind of going in a slightly different direction in some sense. It seems to me they're kind of moving a bit away from billing and more into just overall online accounting, which is nice for a small business if you need to do that kind of stuff. But the thing I like about what it sounds like Harvest is doing is they're really focusing on just doing really great invoicing and time management.
Yeah, Harvest does one or two things very well and not much else, but also they're inexpensive.
Yeah, so that's cool.
And they make tax time really easy.
So that's kind of like your tools and your like...
Yeah, I guess I kind of immersed it today, but...
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, really anything where you're communicating is what you need.
Yeah, something... And honestly... the other thing is it helps you like create a record so you can go back. You kind of get a track record for yourself, and it also just gets the job done. Like before I use tools like these, I would also be like late on billing people. I just would hate like at the end of the week after working my butt off, the last thing I wanted to do was sit down and do all my time and get all my stuff together and do my invoicing. Right. I was like, and the nice thing about using these systems is it's already done for you, and so at the end of the day you just hit button done. You just hit the button, and it makes that whole process completely easier.
Yeah, it's very. It's just really you got to have that feedback loop going, or else you're going to end up in a lot of uncomfortable conversations. And also, if things go badly, having that documentation may be useful. Especially if there's a disagreement with PM and it ends up being escalated.
Or like one time I was customizing AW Stats, which is like this. Web usage analyzer, and I broke it. Right, I broke how it reported, and but it wasn't really clear that it was the work I had done. But but just by going to my notes, I was able to go, oh, you know what, I did work it on Thursday in this spot here, and I was able to very quickly back out, even though it was like 2 weeks later or a week later, I can't remember. I was able to back out, so I screwed up, but just by having my notes of when I had done what, I was able to recover a lot quicker. So I didn't have like this uncomfortable spot where there was like hours and hours where we had to fix my screw up. I was like, oh, I just need to go change this real quick. And it, saves face.
Yeah. And also, I mean, we've focused on the consulting side of this, but if you're in an agile organization, keeping documentation of what you're doing will make those meetings and those scrums really easy.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't want to sit there and be like, oh, well, this week and the PM's going to start looking at you. Possibly install, like VPN on your machine.
VNC.
Yeah, VNC, I'm sorry. Or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Hourly screenshots.
Hourly, yeah, that people...
They have software out there that does that and then sends it back to a console.
I actually wrote a program that does that for a client.
They use your program.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. You bad man, you're one of them. Well, before we get out of here, I noticed that you had a book pick of the week that I went, what?
Yes, I have an audio book pick of the week.
Yes, so it's Paul Allen, and this is interesting. The book is called, and I've heard this, but I've never checked it out, Idea Man, a memoir by the co-founder of Microsoft.
So I'm very interested in how the whole personal computing industry started. I've read every book I can get my hands on about one of these guys. I'm constantly reading. Now his take is a little different. He paints a less than flattering picture of Bill Gates in his younger days.
Ooh, little dirt.
But it's not like it's not like some of the books written about Apple where Bill Gates is the devil. It's a little more fair, but you could definitely see where he was extremely aggressive, and he was constantly. I wouldn't say double dealing, but I'd say, well, I guess kind of like what I recommend, plan for the divorce. And I don't want to spoil anything, but if you know the history of Microsoft and MITS, Bill Gates was always planning for the divorce with MITS.
So this is from Penguin Audiobooks. They usually put out pretty good stuff.
Very good quality.
And they have it in the enhanced audio format. It's 12 hours. Should I play a sample?
Go for it.
Of a fully functioning computer onto a single chip, what came to be called a microprocessor. Before these new chips arrived on the scene, it took dozens or hundreds of integrated circuits to perform one narrow function, from traffic lights to gas pumps to printer terminals. Microwave oven-sized mini-computers, the machines that bridged mainframes and the microcomputers yet to come, followed the same formula: one chip, one purpose. But Hoff's invention was far more versatile. As Gordon Moore noted, now we can make a single chip and sell it for several thousand different applications. In November 1971...
That seems like, reflecting on what a radical change the microchip brought to the industry is a great part. That's at the very beginning of the book there. And
it's really interesting, too, because he recounts a lot of tales of talking to, older businessmen when he was young and how they all thought he was a jackass.
Oh, yeah?
They all thought he was a total idiot. Like, microprocessors, what are you, crazy?
Well, I will link to that in the show notes. That'll be an affiliate link, and if you grab it, if you have not used Audible before, if it's your first time, you get that book for free, and then you can cancel your Audible subscription at the end of that, and you get to keep the book, although I wouldn't. And also, if that's not up your alley, but you are interested, use our link that will link to this, and I think if you still search around, we still get credit for it. They are doing a sale on the Hobbit books right now. So you can get that actually for free, though, if this is your first Audible purchase. So use our link in the show notes to this, and I think if you just head over and find the Hobbit, that was their number one seller last month because they have it on sale, and also a lot of first-time signups. They've got a lot of great books over at audible.com. I'm reading 2 books at once right now. Do you ever do that with Audible? Do you ever do that where you have like your serious book that's like really heavy, and then you have like your relaxed book to kind of like unwind?
I usually read fiction on the Kindle, and so on Audible, I tend to do nonfiction. So currently on Audible, I'm doing This Machine Kills Secrets.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, so
I have, which I haven't listened to yet. Trust me, I'm lying. I just finished No Easy Day, the story about the Bin Laden raid. Right now, I'm listening to A People's History of the United States, which is really very good, but very, very, very
different.
long. No, very long. Oh yeah, it's history moments taken from accounts of like from historians that and documentations. It's like an alternative version of history, but still accurate. It's hard to explain. It's like 16 hours long. But I'm also listening to a really great Star Trek book that's narrated by Leonard Nimoy, and they put all the sound effects in there and like the ambient noises. It's cool for a Star Trek fan.
Nice. All right, so the tool of the week was Basecamp, and can I just mention one other thing?
Yeah.
Just a small plug. So I'm currently consulting on a Kickstarter project.
Oh, really? Which one? Can you say?
Yes, I can. Called Ex Oblivione. It is a Unity game for mobile devices, targeting iOS first and potentially Android. I think a lot of it's based on the Kickstarter.
Can you link that in the chat or something? That'd be really cool to check out.
Yeah,
I can't even. How would you even spell that? So it's a game. Is it gonna? What platforms do we know?
So it's gonna in the Kickstarter. It's starting off as iOS.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
But depending, it's one of those weird things where they've decided to do. How do you say rewards, right? So like, and I'm new to the Kickstarter world, and this is actually a client of mine. They're doing this game. What I think is interesting is that's actually H.P. Lovecraft themed. So if you're a Lovecraft fan, check it out. I'm not the lead on this. I'm actually just doing the native integration for any potential mobile platforms.
So they're using Unity, you mentioned.
They're using Unity. Yeah, it's very interesting.
So it really could work for anything.
Yeah, I think that's based, I think, a lot on the Kickstarter. And then the reason I'm a little cagey is I don't want to say anything that's not listed there. But it's definitely an interesting product.
Yeah, they still need quite a. They have
a
18
ways
days,
to go.
But they have a wait.
Yeah,
they're not anything. They're looking for a goal of 5,000. That's not bad. So what type of game is it?
So it's a launcher game. It's very art heavy. So it's very much about being themed on Cthulhu. I'm sorry, on H.P. Lovecraft's universe.
Okay.
So it's something for sci-fi fans.
I'm liking that. So, all right. So, there you go. Oh, there's some art. There's some. Okay.
Yeah, if you scroll down, there's a bunch of screenshots. So it's definitely a unique art style. It reminds me of that new comic book art style that people seem to want to use.
Cell shading? Is
that what it's called?
I think so. Yeah, it's cell shading.
This is where my knowledge of graphics design hits the toilet right here.
Yeah, I think it's a form of cell shading. Yeah. Cool. Well, all right. Well, we should put a link to that in the show notes too, huh? I'll grab that. I'll grab that. Put a link. Just people want to check that out. They might. So I'll put that. I don't know. I like Kickstarter quite a bit, but I don't know if I've gotten much from it yet.
Well, yeah. So this project, because like I said, I'm consulting with the developers. Kickstarter is an interesting choice for games. I mean, I know there's some success.
I think it's a great idea for games.
I feel like you have to be very careful what you say with games, though.
Oh, that's not true. In fact, one of the games I'm playing right now is a Kickstarter game that got Linux support. So I guess I have gotten a few things. Yeah, you do have.
Oh, really?
You don't want to overcommit.
Right.
Yeah, that can be hard. But usually if it's a team that's produced something before, I have a little more faith. Right?
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, and the main company doing it, that Wrathhammer Games, has done some games before.
Yeah. So that's usually a good sign. Usually if they've produced, then they have at least the means. All right, Mr. Dominic. Well, I think that's the show, huh?
I think that's the show. We both have to run.
We did it. We got it just in time. Well, look at us. Gosh, we are pros. All right, well, where should people follow you throughout the week? Oh, wait, what do I have? I have that Kickstarter video playing still. I was like, I hear somebody talking in the background. Is that you? No. I'm watching the Kickstarter video. Well, good luck to those people. All right, so yeah, where should people follow you throughout the week?
You can follow me on Twitter or app.net @Dumanuka, or you can follow me at Google+. How can I forget Google+?
There you go, Google+.
Just under my name.
There you go. We'll have links to those in the show notes as well. And links to my places as well if you want to contact us. You can also email the show, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Watch us live Mondays, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern at jblive.tv. Available for download a little bit later this Monday, but Monday afternoons at jupiterbroadcasting.com. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning to this week's episode of Coder Radio. See you right back here next week.